Hello, boys and girls. Okay, so today we are going over decimals. So I want you to look at this decimal place value mat, and I want you to go ahead and point at where the decimal is. Just point on your screen. Yes, that's where it is. Right here is my decimal. So I want you to know one thing. I want you to know that over here to my right, so the right of the decimal, this is less than a whole, than one whole. Everything to my left of the decimal is always one or more. This is always one or more. That is very important. So our decimal here separates what is our whole to what is our less than whole. So we can think of this using money. If I have one whole dollar, all my cents behind it are less than that $1, correct? Yes. So now let's talk about money now. So now I'm going to show you here. So I'm going to take this $1 bill, and we're going to use this $1 bill to represent one whole. So here it is, my $1. Okay, so if we want to use a coin to help us show tenths, which coin would we use? So let's think, how many times or how many coins should we use to represent tenths? And remember, tenths always means that it takes 10 out of 10 to make a whole. That's correct. We use dimes. So I'm going to go here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right here, these 10 dimes, they're equal to one whole. Now, I can use base 10 blocks. I can use the same thing that we've used many times before, and that is using our base 10 blocks. So here I have my flat, and usually my flat represents my one whole. So now let's think, we've used this before, and we've talked about this in our place value. What would be representative of my tenth? My tenths. Perfect, my rod. Because it takes 10 of my rods to create one whole. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Remember, it takes 10 rods to create my one whole. That's why it's considered my tenth. So let's keep on going. So like I mentioned, it takes these blocks, 10 of these blocks to equal to my one whole. So it means this is 10 out of my 10. Same with my dimes. It took me 10 dimes to get to my one whole. So we need to relate this back to fractions. So this right here is representative of 10 out of 10, which is also equal to one whole. So now that we went over that, I want to ask you, how many dimes would we use to represent 4 tenths? So let's build 4 tenths. So right here, let's use our base 10 blocks first. So we want to use 4 out of my tenths. So let's look. I need to cover, this is 1/10, because I've already have 1 out of my 10 that creates a one whole. I will then have my 2/10. I will place that on top. Then I need 3/10. And remember, I want to get to 4/10, so that means I need just one more. Can we see how 4 out of these 10 gives me 4/10? So this one right here would be 4 out of my 10 gives me 4/10. Now we can use the same for our coins. This is 1/10, meaning this is 1 coin out of our possible 10 coins that make a $1 bill. This is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. So I have 4/10 represented in coins, and I have 4/10 represented in our base 10 blocks. So we can think of these rods as the same thing as a dime. If I had 10 dimes, that would give me one whole dollar. If I had 10 rods, that would give me one whole flat. So I have 4 rods, 4 out of my whole 10. I have 4 coins, 4 dimes out of my 10 dimes, which would be equal to 1 whole. So let's think of it as a fraction. 4 out of 10, 4/10. Make sure you say that tenths. Now I'm going to demonstrate 2/10. And remember, 2/10 is just 2/10 out of 10 equal parts. We've gone over fractions before, so we're doing parts over whole, parts over equal parts. So let's see. If we have if we have 2/10, again, I'm going to use these rods. Why? Because I already know that these are 2 out of my 10 rods needed to make 1 whole. Because we've already discussed that 10 rods gives me 1 whole. Same thing with my dimes. I have 2/10, that's 1/10. Now this is 2/10. We say that this is 2 out of 10 because if I had 10 dimes, that again would give me 1 whole. So here, this represents 2/10. 2 out of my tenths needed. So let's go back to this one here. This is my 1 whole, my flat. If I have 2/10, that means I am just using 2 of my 10 rods that equals this flat. You see that how we have 1, 2 out of all these 10. Now let's go ahead and move on to try to find 9/10. So let's see, let's try to do 9/10. Again, I'm going to start off with my rods. So if I want to make 9/10, how many tenths do you think I need to use? Correct, I need to use 9 because I need to use 9 out of my 10 rods. So this is my 9/10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I want you to think of this as having 90 cents. Why? Because if I include one more rod, this would be 1 whole. So we're still less than $1. And it does look very similar to my 1 whole, my flat, but we're missing 1 more. So now let's do this with my coins. So I'm going to, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right here I have 9. If I would have added or included one more dime, this wouldn't give me 1 whole dollar. This would make 1 whole dollar. But here we have 9 out of our 10. 9 rods out of our 10 to make 1 whole. 9 dimes out of our 9 to make $1. Let's practice a few more. So now I'm going to ask you, I want to have 1/10. So that means if I want 1/10, I know that I have to use 1 rod or I can use 1 dime. Why? Because again, this is 1 rod out of my 10 needed for 1 whole, or 1 dime, 10 cents out of my 1 whole. So this is 1, 10, 1 out of 10 needed. Now, what if I try for 7/10? I want 7/10. Well, some of you may be thinking, well, let's just put 7 there. You're correct. Yes, let's put just 7 more. Let's put 6 more rods to create 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have my 7 rods right here. And again, this is my 7 out of my 10 to make one whole. I need 7 of my coins in order to make 7 tenths. Remember, because I need 10 to make one whole. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this right here represents 7 tenths. Now I want you to go ahead and grab your 4A worksheet, or 1/8 worksheet, I'm sorry, and I'm going to go along with you. So I want you to build 6 tenths. So we're going to have our decimal placemat, and I'm going to put this blue decimal right here, bright in center, because remember, this is separating my wholes from my decimals. So here I want us to do and build 6 tenths. So here, if I want to build 6 tenths, I'm going to be using my rods. Here is 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths. This is my 6 tenth. So here, this is my 6 tenths. I'm going to move it to the side, and I'm going to go back to my paper, and I'm going to color in 6 tenths. So I'm going to go here, and I want you to color 6 of these rods. So this is 1, that's 1 tenth. This is 2 tenths. And I want you to go all the way till we get to 6 tenths. So here I've already colored in my 6 tenths. So now I want to move on. So I want to look. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of my tenths colored, just like I would in a fraction. So I want to ask you all, since I know we're such an intelligent group of students, I would need how many more to make a whole? Exactly, I would need 4 more rods or 4 more tenths to create a rod. So here, to create a hole, I'm sorry. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 6 tenths. So I want us to draw it. I want us to draw our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a demonstration of our 6 rods. 6 tenths. So now I want you to draw here. This is my decimal. Remember that decimal that I used to separate? Perfect. So then I have to put my 6 tenths. That is how my decimal looks. Because this is separating, remember right here, this is my decimal. It's separating me from my 1. So right here, I'm looking at this. Do I have any 1s? Do I have any wholes? No. So that means there is a 0 here. I have no wholes, but I have 6 tenths. So I put my decimal, remember, because my decimal separates my whole numbers with my decimals. Now we need to write it as a fraction. And we've gone over this. I have 6 out of my 10 needed to make one whole. So I have 6 tenths. Now let's move on to the side. I have 0 wholes, and I have 6 tenths out of 10. 6 tenths out of 10. Now we're going to write this in expanded notation, and I know that this is where we're going to get a little bit stuck, but we've all gone through expanded notation before, right? So now let's try it with using our decimals. So here, the way we would write our expanded notation is to use, we have 6 groups of 1 tenth. So right here we would put our decimal and our 1, because remember we're separating that. 6 groups of 1 tenth, and that is how we would write our expanded notation. Now let's write that in word form. So now here in word form, we are going to write 6 tenths. That is how I would write it in word form. Now let's move on to letter B. So here for letter B, I want us to use 3/10. So I'm going to look at letter B. So if I have 3/10, if I want to use 3/10, I need to color in how many? Perfect, 3. So I need to color in 3. So I'm going to color right here, 1. And you do this as well with your paper. 1, 2, 3. I have my 3/10. So now let's go ahead and sketch this. If I need to sketch this, how many rods am I going to write? Well, how many rods do I have shaded? I have 1, 2, 3. So that means I am going to draw my 3 rods. So here it is, 1, 2, 3. Those are my 3 rods. And I'm going to write this in a decimal. Remember, our decimal point separates our wholes and our decimals. So let's think, do I have any wholes? No, the only way this would be one whole if everything inside was shaded. And is it shaded? No, we only have 3. So that means I have no whole numbers. I need to have my decimal point to separate my whole number to my decimal. And I have 3/10. So here's where I'm going to write my 3/10. Now I'm going to draw this in again. Do I have any holes again? Do I have anything in my ones place? No, I have a 0. Put my decimal because I need to separate the 2. And I have 3/10. So then I put my 3 right there. Now we have to write this in a fraction. How many parts are shaded? Correct, that's 3. That's my numerator. And how many equal parts are there? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 equal parts. So this is 3 out of my 10 equal parts. This is 3/10. Again, we're going to look here. I did not have any whole numbers. And blank tenths out of blank. We are going to write this fraction in words. So I have 0 whole numbers and 3/10 out of 10 equal parts. Now I'm going to write this in expanded notation. Again, I have my 3 groups. I have my 3 groups of 10. This represents 1/10. I have 3 groups of 1/10. Now let's write this in word form. So now I'm going to write 3/10. Now I want us to try something different. Now I want us to incorporate a whole number into this. So I'm going to go back to my mat. Let me zoom out. And let's see, what if I said I wanted to show 1 whole and 5/10? And I'm going to use both my base 10 blocks and money. So here I have my 1 whole and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here I have my 1 whole and my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths. The reason I say and, because remember we mentioned that my decimal point right here separates between my wholes and my decimals. So I know that I have to say 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths. So I have 1 and 5 tenths. This is 1 and 5 tenths. So now let's think of this as money. I have 1 and, fix that, and my 5 tenths. So I have my 1 whole and my 5 tenths. That's the way I would demonstrate this using base 10 blocks and my money. So now I'm going to go back to my page, right here, to my letter C. Now I'm going to color it in. Whenever I demonstrated this, I had my base 10 block right here. All of them are there. I have my 10 out of 10. So in other words, I have to color in another thing. I have to color in 1 whole, meaning I have to color 10 out of my 10. So let's do this here. 1. Now I want you to go ahead and do the same on your paper. Continue to color in. So right here I already colored in my 10 out of 10. Why? Because 10 out of my 10 rods means I have 1 whole. And think about that. How much is shaded? 1 whole. 1 whole thing was shaded. So I said I wanted to do 1 and 5 tenths. So I have 1 whole and 5 tenths. So again, I'm going to color in my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to color in my 5 tenths. And I need you all to do the same. Okay, so I'm going to leave it like that. My 1 and 5 tenths. So now I'm going to sketch. What did I have here? I had 1 and 5 tenths. So right here, I'm going to draw a flat because this represents my 1 whole. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I had my 5 rods. 1 whole and 5 rods. So now I'm going to write this in my decimal. Remember, I use a decimal point, so I'm going to put that first because I have a whole number and I have a part of a whole number. So I'm trying to separate the two. I have a 1 in my whole number and I have 5 tenths. So right here, since I know 5 tenths is a decimal, I put it behind there. Now here, this is my ones place. So I know I have a 1 in my ones place, have my decimal to separate the two, and I have 5 tenths right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths. Now I'm going to introduce you something a little bit different. This is going to be called a mixed fraction. So in a mixed fraction, I'm going to just draw my 1 whole. So right here I have my 1. And I know I had 5 tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 was shaded. So I have my 5 shaded parts out of my how many equal parts? Perfect. I had 10 equal parts. So this is 1 whole and 5 out of my 10 equal parts. So here I'll put that again. How many whole numbers did I have? I had 1 and that number was 1. And blank tenths. How many tenths did I have? I have 5 tenths. I have 5 tenths shaded out of my 10 equal parts. Now to write this in expanded notation, I'm going to write my 1 group of 1, my 1 group in the ones place, plus my 5 groups of tenths right here. Now let's write this in word form. Remember, I use the word and. 1 and. Right here, this and represents my decimal point. 1 and 5/10. I still use that word and because that is also like my decimal. I'm separating my whole numbers from my decimals. Now, let's do one more. Now for right here, I want to use 1 and 9/10. So I'm going to color this in. I want to color 1 whole and 9/10. So I need you all to do the same on your paper. So now I've already colored my 1 and 9/10. So this is where I'm going to use my base 10 blocks. And I know that this looks different, right? This is not what we're used to. We're used to seeing our rods and our flats, right? This is not something we're used to. But just like fractions, I know that this represents 1 whole. So this is my 1, and then this is my 9/10. This is my parts. So I'm still going to sketch it as if I was using my base 10 blocks. So I have 1 whole, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That is my sketch. Again, I'm going to ask you the same question I had asked before. How many more tenths do I need to make another whole? Yeah, I would just need 1 more tenth, and that would have 2 wholes. But I have 1 and 9/10. So again, I already know I have a decimal, so I'm going to already put my decimal point to separate my whole and my decimal. How many wholes do I have? I have 1 whole, meaning I have 1 10/10. Now I have and 9/10. So I have my 1 whole and 9/10. Here, I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to have a decimal point here. I have my 1 whole, my 1 10/10, and my 9/10. Just like this one up here, I'm going to write another mixed fraction. I have a 1 whole, and I have 9 shaded parts out of my 10 equal parts. So I have 1 and 9/10. So now I look up here. How many whole numbers did I have? I only had 1 whole number, and that was 1. So I have 1 whole, and I have blank tenths out of blank. So I had 9 tenths out of my 10 equal parts. Now let's write that in expanded notation. So again, I have my 1 group of 1, and this time I'm going to write it like a decimal. This still represents 1 whole. So I know that this is 1 group of 1 plus 9 groups of 10. I have no holes in this one. And look at that, guys. This represents 1/10. Now I'm going to write this in word form. So now let's look at this. Let's do 1 and, remember this and also represents my decimal, 9/10. Not 1 and 9/10. When I use that word and, that helps show me that that is my decimal point.